So, all right, welcome back, everybody. It is Booster Week or Booster Day Wednesdays, and a couple of housekeeping. For any information on webinars, education, on-site events, make sure you go to scalepad.com/events. This is the new booster session, which is 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. We started today, and that time change was to accommodate the people have spoken, and I was receptive to their requests. It is now 3 to 4 p.m. on Wednesdays, every Wednesday from here on out. Unless, of course, things change. You guys request, 4 to 5 works better. We'll cross that bridge when we get there and whatnot. All right. Where are we going to be next? Well, we are in IT Nation today, Evolve today, and then Connect from November 8th to 10th. Then Women of the Channel, December 4th through 5th. And then Millionaire Mastermind, December 7th through 8th in Newport Beach, California. And then ScalePad Ignition, we do have an event for everybody. Hold on, let me get that link. There's a link that I want to present to you guys on chat. Where's my chat? All right, this is our ignition. Basically, anything that's happening within Lifecycle Insights, ScalePad, Cognition 360, Control Map, all those other companies that we ScalePad has purchased and acquired. We'll be talking more about plans for the rest of the year and plans for 2024. And the things that are coming up next and all that good stuff. We are also doing a couple of what's that called, awards for our MSP partners. So just be there for it. Make sure you guys register for that call. And that call will have 3 different time slots. It really just choose one. It's going to be the same for all 3. We're just trying to accommodate every partner that we have across the globe. Launch pads are on Thursdays, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern for the VCIO. And then customer success is 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern if you guys have the customer success module available. A couple other things, MSP Confidential is now on Fridays at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hold on, sorry. I think this next week is going to be 4 p.m. to 5 for some apparent reason. I think it's because Louise is in IT Nation, and that's probably why. So that is a live stream / podcast. Louise gets to talk to people and discusses a gamut of things and whatnot. There's a new Lifecycle Insight Help Center. It is going to be at help.lifecycleinsights.io, and it's just basically anything that you want to see in our site. It's also available there. Then the community platform is coming, a new one where we will have forums, discussions, feature requests, roadmap updates, events, and more. And we're aiming for a December launch. All right, last week we talked about it's not too late to give your clients your 2024 technology budget. I went through a whole bunch of things. That's me with hair. I don't have hair anymore because I like to shave it now. And I did this quote that said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. And that goes with your budgets. The best time to do your budget was 3 months, 6 months ago. The second best time is now. Go ahead and create those 2024 budgets, present it before December so that your clients understand what's coming up next for their business, for their technology budgets. The purpose of these calls is to develop a repeatable process that delivers value to your clients, improve relationships, and increase gross margin. Why it's important. The number one reason that customers say no to your recommendations is because they fear that the next time you come back, you're just asking for money, and it's really not as I guess productive as an actual budget. We went and answered the questions of what kind of contracts you included, what type of recommendations you provide, when do you talk about budgets to your clients. I believe Chris was the one who answered last week that they include all contracts that they can and will provide for their budget. And by the way, that recording will be live up in YouTube as soon as this one comes up, so I can do 2 parts in one download. I talked about what's included, what should be included in the budgets, What else should be included? Not only red or yellow devices and lifecycle insights, you should go ahead and plan the green ones, the ones that are in 2026, 2027. Doubling up options for your clients, first party, what about your stack alignment, third party, and all that. And I ended with remediation plan, and this is where we're going to pick up. I invited Steve here, and really this is an open forum, a round table. I just wanted to talk to Steve because he had great examples, and of course, if it remains at 11 people, I will call people out on here and just give me your best practice and all that. So with our technical deficiencies identified and the budget outlined, it's time to talk about fixing things, and this is where a good remediation plan can help you. Transparent plan helps the client prioritize their deficiencies based on how they impact business operations and outcomes. This includes and should include free and paid recommendations, life cycle management, warranties for critical systems, buying down technical debt, which means if they have a contract that they didn't use you for, make sure that those contracts are budgeted first so that they don't I guess interfere with any of your budgetary reasons or budgetary recommendations. Deploying cybersecurity tools, cloud migrations, infrastructure, and relocation projects should also be included. So if you have a lease for their building, go ahead and include that in their budget, because if they plan to move, who's going to be in charge of getting all those devices set up in that new building? It's more than likely going to be you. We did have the question, how do you make your clients care? And I'm going to go ahead and basically ask Steve to actually talk more about how do you make them care on this, and see if that really translates to everybody else as far as what he's doing for his clients. So Steve, how do you make your clients care, man?
Well, I think part of it is getting in front of them on a regular basis. That is something that we've talked about in the MSP space probably for 10 years or better. But not getting in front of your day-to-day contact, but getting in front of decision makers and having them understand that you have a plan and that IT isn't like buying a piece of furniture. That's one of the examples I use. You buy a conference room set, you expect it to last 20 years. When you buy IT, it's a constant investment. Those of you who may own boats or RVs will understand, or into cars, you'll understand that concept. There's always something that you should be doing, and maintenance and so forth. And changing that mindset, to me, is one of the most important things to do, is getting them to understand that it's a journey, not just a one-time purchase.
Yeah. And speaking of that one-time purchase, I came across this. By the way, I listened to Kyle Christensen, Wes Spencer, and Alex Farling, good friends of the show, and they talked about buying the same time last time, and that really translates into like, hey, you have a $35,000 replacement for all your workstations, and I'm purchasing that in 2024, but you have a 5-year limit for those workstations. So in 2024, you're going to be buying in 2029, you're going to be buying the same amount of things to replace all that things that you're doing for 2024. So is that feasible for most clients now, Steve, or is that something that you should actually budget out and separate?
And in the way I do it is, people are coming on with buying or leasing equipment. I'm trying to get them to think about it, especially not so much on the one-offs, but on when they're doing bulk purchases. And I've run into this a lot in the space now that leasing has become a thing again in the space, because we have partners who will lease the labor to install and so forth. So from my perspective, I go, if you do a lease now, I'm going to put something in there for 5 years from now. The numbers may not be right, the counts may not be right, but at least it's a subtle reminder that you're thinking ahead and they need to think ahead. Again, getting away from that one-time purchase concept that most people have with IT.
Is that what people are seeing nowadays as well? Brad, Joe, anybody? you guys seeing the same thing as far as one-time purchases, or are you guys planning to, like, are you guys actually going in there and saying, hey, I think leases are bad, I think we should, you know, separate these contracts or these device purchases, separate quarters, or what are you guys doing on your end?
We have completely stepped away from firewall as a service for specifically, and so we're having our clients, you know, purchase the device, and then of course they have annual licensing to pay for after that.
Mm-hmm.
We're a Sonic Wall shop. But as far as leasing PCs and that type of thing, zero experience there. But I would kind of be more interested in learning a little bit more about that, especially like if you're swapping those out, the frequency you're swapping them out. And does that, you know, carry with it, you know, obviously like a setup fee every 3 years or 5 years or however often you're swapping out those leased machines? What happens after the lease is over to those machines and so forth?
From a leasing standpoint, I'll start with, I'm not a huge fan of leasing of PCs. Infrastructure server that, you know, you're going to get a solid 5 years if we've done our job right as a recommendation. I have no problem with it. I also, when I talk to clients about it, and just so you know, my background is I have an accounting degree too. I don't use it, but I went through all the schooling to learn about that. In our industry, I see a lot of people trying to sell fair market value leasing. And, you know, they say, oh, we can cut your payment this way. You can spread it out over X number of years. And they neglect to tell anybody about that 20, 30, 40% hit at the end, or you continue paying for it. Anytime I recommend leasing, I go with dollar buyout because it's the same as buying it. You're just splitting your costs over time. You know, and so that works for many of them. Leasing is something where we would hit them again if we've got to do the swap of all the equipment. You're going to pay the labor for it. We're not doing a HOS type of environment. We're doing it would be a true lease environment. The challenge you have with leasing computer hardware is inevitably a client says to me, well, I want to keep the desktops because there's nothing wrong with them, but these laptops are dead. And at least the leasing companies we've been working with, they won't split it up. You keep it all or you keep none of it. So I'm not surprised, Joe, that you're in the boat where, you know, like you haven't done a whole lot with leasing, because in IT, it's tough. It's not like a car or your mortgage or something. There's many pieces that make it up. So it is a little more challenging. There are some partners that I can introduce you to if you'd like, to at least talk to that do computer leasings and do work with MSPs.
So Greg put on chat, most leasing companies I have worked with will allow us to add our project labor to the lease as long as it's under a certain percentage of the product whole, which is great. If that leasing company, by the way, Greg, is a national leasing company that all the other MSPs can use, go ahead and put that on the chat as well so that we can probably use them, or as a group can vet them and whatnot. There is a question on here. It was a direct message to me, Steve. What is the best practice to account for cost increases in multi-year budgets? So far, he's advised using a buffer recommendation for the year to account for cost increases in discretionary, et cetera, et cetera. I believe what he's doing is what's good, especially if he's doing it now and he's doing it in Lifecycle Insights as a recommendation. But what do you do as far as multi-year budgets increases?
What I've done so far is when I give somebody a budget number on PCs, I inflate it a fair amount anyway, because we know our labor is going up. We have no idea, especially after the last 3 years, what the cost of a PC is going to be down the road. All it takes is one boat sinking, literally, and there could be chips on it, and the industry stopped.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I try to ballpark it higher. So like right now, when I'm budgeting for a desktop, I'm budgeting $2,000. And for a laptop, I'm budgeting $2,500. Will they use that? Maybe, maybe not. But it's really hard to predict. Do they need monitors? Do they need docking stations? So at least you're giving them an estimate. And 5 years from now, I'll probably put it at $2,700. Although I've been doing this long enough that the spend per PC really doesn't change other than the install. The manufacturers kind of have kept the same price structure for quite a while, other than during COVID.
Okay. I'm sorry, Brad. I know I skipped over you. You were trying to speak. Do you have something in mind to say, or what?
Really nothing in addition to what Steve said. Most of our deals are cash outright, but once in a while, if somebody's buying 40 or 50 PCs, then it'll be a dollar buyout lease, or obviously a $40,000 server replacement system they'll lease. But personally, I've only been involved in 2 of those of all the ones I've done. So
the second question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, for Brad, I'm right with you. I mean, it's the large purchases, and it's not. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it unless you're using it to split your cost over a number of months. That if you're weak with cash, this is as long as your credit's good, it's a way for getting a client to make a purchase that they need but don't necessarily have the money in the bank to do it today.
Okay. Greg put on another thing on chat. I've tried to predict cost increases when budgeting, but over time I've reverted to just saying, this is what you spent last time, and keep in mind the prices go up over time. That's a good best practice for everybody. The next question I had was, do you understand your niche as far as like, hey, are you trying to take care of all lawyers, medical career fields, manufacturing sites, and all that good stuff? You mind expanding on that niche thing that we discussed earlier, Steve?
Sure. We are a larger MSP. We're about 50 employees, give or take a little bit, in the Chicago, Northern Illinois area, heading up into the Wisconsin area. We go across multiple niches. We do legal, we do some medical, we do manufacturing, we do logistics, construction. We cover a number of them. One of the keys to our success, and for my success in doing this here and at other MSPs over the years, is learning a little bit about the market. You don't need to be an expert in the niche. It helps, for sure, but it also limits how much you can work in other groups. It's important to understand what are some of the things. If you're in health, you need to understand EPHI, and frankly, you have to educate half of the small practices you work with. If you're in legal, who are you representing? Are you representing the consumer? Are you representing municipalities? I've done a little bit of both. Or what type of law, because then you need to know what their requirements are. So you really have to go towards it, and we as a company are working towards, I won't say turning away other obscure clients, because nobody actively turns people away, but we definitely are targeting different niches so we can be better educated for them, and understand the industry.
So speaking of understanding, and it ties into the second question, do you know your client's budget cycle? So we talked about this. The budget cycle is, for government agencies. I mean, more, Steve. You mind I'm talking about that as far as where your budget cycle goes and how you budget items for different
Yeah,
different
and
companies?
it really, to me, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You have to know when your client's budget cycle is. Now, some smaller clients aren't, you're not going to know because they don't have a budget cycle. But if once you get into clients that are, in my experience, 25 users or better, or government related, you need to know, gee, they're a December 31st year end. Okay. So that means fourth quarter, if they'll, my good clients let me know, hey, Steve, where can I spend money? I want to use it up before it's done. I have other clients who have September 30 deadlines. And I then, with the clients who partner with us, try to learn over time, when do they start thinking about it? So, for example, I work with a surgery center, and they are really good about spending money when I recommend it. But I also know that I've got to start calling them in September, so by October we can have the conversation. And I know I'm not going to see any fruit off the vine until January, the earliest, but the numbers are in the budget, and that helps build my pipeline for the future.
Nice. Any I guess experiences with clients' budget cycles on this group, other than like the October and your experiences of either catching it early or not catching it at all, and what it went through? Or just to Brad, you went off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've got a few municipal clients, and they're, on a calendar budget cycle, but they basically start their budgeting process July.
Yeah.
I guess because they have to have an initial to be approved in September, and then they finalize it in December. So if you don't have something to them, end of second quarter, first part of third quarter, it's going to be tough for them to do it in that next calendar year. So
how many times do you guys meet with that client?
Those clients, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year, really depends
Okay.
upon their related.
And actual quarterly business reviews and timing it and whatnot. That's fine. That's perfect. That's awesome.
It sounds like those clients are partnering with you, Brad. And that's the relationship. Business reviews only work if the client's a partner and doesn't treat you like a vendor. If they're price shopping, they're not going to look for the premium service that you offer. And that's a tough change in this industry, because in the old days it was the value added resellers, and then we turn to MSPs, and there's the guys who charge $125 an hour, and then there's the people who are more mainstream, who have people like myself or other seasoned professionals. And frankly, we cost more, but we provide value to them so that they can run their businesses better. So that's a client who doesn't want to meet with you, to me, is a sign, hey, this client's only worried about price. And that's, I try to change their opinion. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. The next question I have is, does your budget align with your client goals? And what I mean by this is, if you know that the clients want to grow by, your clients want to grow by 30%, do they understand that they have to hire more employees, they have to get more assets, that they have to buy more licenses and all these other things, or they have to go into a different office and grow that way? And that means actually, like, your budget, if you give them a budget and doesn't align to that, like it would really hinder your ability to actually recommend these things. Do you have something like that as far as a story, Steve, or is that like?
With the way I handle it is my business reviews, and just Mark knows this, but we call ours technology planning meetings instead of a business review. And the reason we do that is I'm not reviewing their business. I'm trying to see how technology is interweaved into their environment and into their processes. So we found it was a better way to address it with the client. And it's the same thing as a QBR or a BR, depending on how often you do it. one of the first things I start with is a little bit of education, but the second thing I go into is tell me about your business. How are things going? What changes do you see for 2024? And a lot of times if I give that open-ended question, I don't get the responses I want. So I dig it down a notch and I say, hey, are you going to be adding staff this year? Or, those types of things, trying to give them quantitative rather than qualitative questions. Again, my clients that partner with me, they know I've got to buy, I've got to worry about computer equipment. I've got to worry about licensing. I've got to worry about a place for them to sit, a phone line nowadays, all those things. Smaller clients, that's a struggle because they think I need somebody to help generate revenue, whatever their business is, but they don't necessarily think of the cost of that. So I try to educate them as part of the process.
Awesome. Next question. Considering that we've been talking about a recession for, I don't know, 2-3 years now, that next year is going to be the recession year and whatnot. And I still have yet to see it as far as a recession really is concerned. Have you budgeted for a recession, Steve?
From my perspective, my whole concept with my clients is to plan for worst case. And what I mean by that is we look at the good times and we say, hey, we're going to have this growth next year. But what I try to do is work with my clients to have a consistent cost structure for them for IT. Depending on the industry, and this is very subjective, I try to have their IT costs to be in the 1% range of their gross revenue. Sometimes it goes up to 2, really depends on what they're doing and their requirements for different things. I try to budget on a 5-year life cycle where we do the servers 1 year, we do part of the workstations the 2nd year, we do part of the workstations the 3rd year. And what I try to do is I try to leave the 5th year where there's no big projects that are going to be needed in there. So that if a client comes and says, hey, the recession's hit, we just don't have the capital, they're not going to be behind the 8 ball with a 7 or 8 year old server that we as professionals know are just going to kick the bucket or it's going to cost us money to keep them running that has it. So really the way I like to budget it is to try to flatline it and spread my costs over time and leave a gap year where possible so that if they do have a down year, we can shift things around without compromising their ability to operate.
Does anybody else have a recession budgeted already, or is that something you guys are still planning to do? And I'm just opening it up for people. I don't want to call people out yet, like Mike or Jeff. Or Jeff's driving, so drive safe, Jeff. Both Chris's. Have you guys thought about a recession, or is that something that your MSPs have talked about?
No, but we're actually starting a strategic kind of team with our leadership that I'm actually making notes to discuss with our team because I think that's something we definitely need to keep in mind.
Yeah. I'm a good resource. Steve is a good resource. I'm gonna have Steve put his LinkedIn. I'd like, if he can do it now, he'll do it now. If he can do it at the end of the call, do it at the end of the call. He'll give you, this is once again a roundtable exercise for everybody. Get some good best practices and recommendations from here. So do you ask your clients for a threshold on agent price, Steve?
No, I actually don't.
Okay.
What I try to do is recommend to them best practices to it, tell them what it costs, tell them the value of what they're doing, and let them come back to me and say, hey, I like your idea, but it's not my budget. if you let the client set your prices, it's very, very difficult to make money from my perspective.
Has any MSP actually asked their clients for the threshold and agent price and actually use that as their standard? Anybody here?
We usually tell them a threshold on age anyway. Just typically speaking, like a standard, like Steve just mentioned, we would use something like for a Dell product, we would use their recommended life cycle, or if it's a Meraki product, depending. When the client purchases that item, we tell them this is the life cycle, this is the amount of life that the manufacturer expects to get out of this product.
Awesome. I saw a report once that said that keeping a device for longer than the life cycle actually costs more than actually buying two of those devices within the time span that they've kept it, which means that you've gone into that older device, updated it, fixed it because it's getting older, it's getting slower, you updated RAM, and all that good stuff, and it costs more for that actual device to be kept up rather than replaced. So that's just a question. I put in a quote here by a wise man. His name is Chris Weiser. If you guys don't know him, he is the owner and CEO of seven-figure MSP. He's a good guy, friend of the show, and his quote is, "Expenses get cut, budgets do not." So when you're building these budgetary pieces in the budget forecast, make sure you're putting recommendations around these pieces so that they're not considered expenses. They're considered part of your budget. I'm gonna move to the next slide. Why me? So why is it you? Because nobody else is qualified. The things that you guys talk about as far as the technology is concerned, you guys are the experts. Your clients believe you guys are the experts, technology experts for them, considering that they would submit a ticket on a camera system you guys aren't in charge of. Does that ring true to everybody, or is that bad for people that nobody else is qualified, just me? Any thoughts on that for everyone?
I don't think it's that we're the only one qualified to do it, because depending on what part of the country, and you can find an MSP on every corner. And now with the new world we live in, it doesn't matter what corner they're on. Many of them, we cross areas because most of what we can do is remote. So it's not a matter, it's what you want to show them is why what you do is different. What's my differentiates? What's the value I bring to the table as your valued part, let's say. I think it was Joe said that you sell Sonic walls. We sell Sonic walls too, right? So, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to compare your price and my price on it. So we don't want to get in a bidding war. And the people I think that use Lifecycle Insights don't want to be, fighting against firewalls.com and sonicguard.com and things like that. We want to show them this is the tool that we use and this is the product. It's our expertise to help protect your network is why you want to use us, and we're worth the extra value that comes with that.
The last slide I have for everybody, and if we don't use the whole hour, great. I want to give you back more time. But what if my client won't participate? I put on here, fake the info. Ego may get them to fix it. Because you're gonna guess wrong, you're gonna ask forgiveness and offer the accuracy, and this removes surprises. So I'm going to go into my platform real quick and show you guys how we guess wrong on contracts and or recommendations. So from here, I can add a new contract and say, let's say this is a VoIP contract that you're planning to put in, if they're the type of customer that likes to keep their finances close to their chest and they didn't show you their VoIP contract, this is one for you guys. So I'm going to put a monthly cost of $200 and I will estimate that cost. I'll put in the next due date, which is December 1st, and then this expires 1 year from now. And that just basically just me presenting to them and saying, hey, I created a contract for you guys for VoIP because I know you guys use VoIP, and I'm putting that at $200 a month estimated. Did I mess that up? Did I shoot too far up, or is that too low? And ego may get them to fix it, meaning, hey, I think I spend way more than that, or I spend way less than that. And from that point on, correct your cost and put, unless they actually tell you how much they're spending, say, oh, you know what, I spend way less than that. $150 it is. And that will allow you to actually get you to fix their budget on the contracts piece for this little exercise that I just pulled on here to show it how you guys can do it in Lifecycle Insights. I'm going to go back to my presentation and whatnot. Do we have any questions as far as how I got to this, or faking the info? Have you guys done that? And basically this whole situation, or this whole practice, was to remove surprises for the coming year, so that they're not surprised that their VoIP is expiring and you didn't plan that, or your printer copier guy or printers are already old enough that that you want to remove those surprises through those contracts. Any questions on that? Any stories you want to tell, Steve? As far
Not
as
on that one.
Okay.
As we discussed yesterday, I'm looking for partners who are going to share their information. If they're not willing to share it with me, that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Our information that we as partners can provide is only as good as what they provide to us.
Yes, Chris put down on the chat, sometimes it can be difficult to gather this info, so offering to dig into their invoices may help get traction. If they're willing enough to actually give you those invoices, that'd be great. That would actually work. I got into a partner and I got into I guess a conversation with one of their clients. They just had a new CFO. And this new CFO was asking questions. Hey, why do you need my contracts? Why do you need to see all our expenses? I don't think you should see all that. We're just a small business. You're trying to just sell us things and whatnot. And I think that's the stigma with MSPs, right? Like, that's when you come in, when you knock on their door. The joke that Alex always said was, knock, knock. Who's there? I need money was the answer. And that's what, MSPs were relegated to. But now that you have this, contracts piece, now that you have this budget forecast, now that you can actually budget 2024 for them, and soon, hopefully in December, this will give you the ability to remove those surprises to better take care of their technology debt and budget for that whole time. Do we have any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts before I put in my last slide? And my last slide is just for everything else. Brad, you took off your glasses. I don't know if you had, no, okay, all right. I thought you were like, I'm gonna Superman this, took off his glasses. All right, so what's next in Lifecycle Insights Booster? We just did a deep dive for budgets today, and this is part 2. Once again, these videos will be on our YouTube channel. Lifecycle Insights MSP. You got to put the MSP in the back. Somebody took Lifecycle Insights. We don't like those guys, and I'll put those in as soon as it populates on my end. Next week, I'm going to ask our devs for Lifecycle Insights to come in and talk about what they've done so far and what's coming next for the rest of 2023 and first quarter of 2024. So be here 3 p.m. next week, and then I will open that up, and they don't know this, that we will actually take in feature requests from you guys. So any feature requests that you guys have had in your head, hey, this will work better if this is implemented or if this is integrated, please come with those feature requests. We'll take them next Wednesday, 3 to 4 p.m. For November 15th booster. The
Hey,
next
Mark,
week, yeah.
Chris asked a question in
Sorry.
the chat. He was asking how are people handling budgets for companies with multiple holdings or locations which require breaking out costs separately. That is a really good question, Chris, and I was sharing with Mark earlier. I'm working on a 7-site one right now that has lots of recommendations. There is a feature request, and it really depends on what platform you're coming out of as your primary, to be able to roll and separate things. But I try to present mine broken out by site. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. You really need to understand from the client what their budgeting or their cost centers look like, and try to match that as best you can to help them with that feature, would be my answer.
Hopefully that answers your question. Ed, does anybody else have a best practice for that? How you guys handle multiple budgets for companies with multiple locations? Nobody? Okay. Cool. The next week after the 15th, I'm just going to be here. This is a what are you thankful for? We're not going to have that actual booster, but I'm not going to cancel that booster because it's not really like a day off for everybody. I'm just going to be here, and if you guys need an hour that time to catch up on the things that week, hey, I'll give you that hour. If not, I'll be on the call. I'm going to ask you what you guys are thankful for. This is going to be recorded, and I'm going to share that with the ScalePad proper. See you later, Chris. And he's gone. And then the 29th of this month, I'm going to look at what does 2024 look like. I'm going to ask more like Steve. I'm going to ask multiple MSP partners to actually have a discussion on what they see 2024 is looking like, as far as what regulations that you guys have to do, things in the cybersecurity awareness area and all that good stuff. And then for the first 2 weeks of December, we're going to do QBRs quickly, and I'm just going to first week I'm going to build it with you guys, and then the second week I'm going to explain why I built what I built, and then I'm going to once again ask multiple partners to participate. But if nothing else, if there are no other questions, concerns, emotional outbursts, I want to give you back as much time as I can. Once again, I thank everybody for coming through and participating. You guys are what makes this thing, go forward and all that. And if nobody else has anything, I will let you guys go. Yes? Sina, thank you. Chris, Jeff, Keith, Alex. Hey, welcome back, Alex. Joe, Brad, thank you for participating. You guys are awesome. And Steve, once again, man, I appreciate you. I'll see you guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Yes.